The retro style has been really popular with indie games lately. I don't have nostalgia just for the graphics, the old outdated looks. The reason I like playing older games is because I played them when I was a kid. So if you make a game aiming to be similar in style, but a different game, I'm really not going to feel anything for it. That said, none of this was enough to stop me from buying and playing Cosmic Star Heroine for the Nintendo Switch. It's a retro-style RPG that looks like it'd be right at home on the SNES. I barely have nostalgia for games as it is, but that goes twice as much for RPG games. I was never a big RPG player until the very late PS1, early PS2 era. My SNES days were mostly made up of Mario and Donkey Kong. So did I buy this game simply to appease my own masochism? Or is it able to stand on its own, unaided by this sense of nostalgia? Let me tell you about it. Combat in Cosmic Star Heroine is its strength, which is good since that's what you spend a majority of your time doing. You may recall when I discussed this for Ni no Kuni, its gameplay nearly tanked my entire view of the game. So here it's actually exactly the opposite. This game's combat is the only thing that kept me engaged. The battle system is pretty interesting. All characters, including enemies, power up over the course of the battle, gaining style points. The more style you have, the more damage you do, but the same can be said for enemies. Additionally, if you have over 100 style, you can actually survive an attack that would otherwise kill you, giving you one more turn to either heal back above 0 HP, or get out one final attack to kill the enemy. In addition to this, characters have a hyper meter which fills up every turn. When it's full, it causes your attack to do double damage. Skills can only be used once, but all skills can be recharged by defending for a turn. Overall, it makes combat feel very calculated and strategic, with different enemies requiring different approaches. On top of this, there's 11 playable characters, and all of them feel and play completely uniquely. You build a party of 4, and while there were definitely characters I preferred more than others, I really want to praise the developers here on how well they designed each of these characters. The overall number of playstyles you can build a party for is staggering. There are portions of the story where some or even all of your party is dictated to you by the game. You're forced to use a set of characters. Now, usually when games do this, it is only an annoyance. Looking at you, Final Fantasy XIII. But honestly, here it never feels that bad because the characters are so well designed and are fun to play as, even the ones you don't necessarily like. The game is also extremely well balanced. The game has a very good difficulty curve, and that's because the developer uses a fixed number of encounters, so it's really the game is tailored to the difficulty. Personally, I fought everything I could, and outside of one of the bosses in the final area of the game, I never felt like I was under or overpowered. This only added to the overall experience and the strengths of the combat system, because really all of the fights do feel like they require strategy and adaptation, which is not usual for most RPGs. I would give the gameplay in this game a 4 out of 5. Story, however, can't say as nice things about that. It's borderline non-existent. Admittedly, I've not played the game in a couple weeks before recording this review, but honestly, I can say that I don't remember a single character's name or any real plot. I know it takes place in a future with space travel and you start off as an agent for the Space Force, but then the Space Force is bad and wants to mind control everyone in the universe, so then you go rogue to stop them, I think, or something like that. It's painfully generic. It's every sci-fi story you've ever heard. And sadly, even with all these great characters from the gameplay side, none of them really felt unique or memorable from the character side. It also doesn't help that with each stop along the way in the story, you're usually sidetracked into something going on with the local populace. Doesn't feel like it's ever feeding towards the main story. It's always, we're trying to go to the main story and we got distracted in this area doing something to help someone. so it doesn't help the overall plot and makes it feel really disjointed. Now, in addition to the main story, there are some minor side quests that you can uncover as you progress through the game, but overall it's fairly linear. I really don't think this is a bad thing. This was not designed to be an open world RPG. The game is short, it's about 8 or so hours long, and while I did enjoy the combat and gameplay, I also don't mind the length. I think the game really didn't overstay its welcome, it didn't try to, and it felt right. The length of the game felt right for this kind of game. For the story, unfortunately, I would give it a 1 out of 5. For graphics and sound, it's difficult to really review this for me, because like I said, it is a retro-style game, and it's hard for me to be objective with that. I don't like the retro style. I think it looks bad, because it's an old, outdated, simplistic graphics style. Now, if you're a fan of this style, I'm sure this game looks and sounds decent, maybe even above average. I don't really know, I don't play enough of these style games to have a personal gauge for that. So I'm not sure if it stands above or below others in the field. As I said, I'm not a fan of the style, so the visuals and the soundtrack wasn't that memorable for me, but at the same time it didn't hinder my experience with the game. And it definitely fits what the game is trying to be, which is a throwback to these Super Nintendo era RPG games. The visuals are at least clear enough to differentiate the different characters and their different attacks in the menus, and the sounds didn't make my ears bleed, but there weren't really any earworms either. They didn't really dig in there. I'm giving the graphics and sound a 3 out of 5, but again, depending on how you feel about these kinds of games, I may be totally wrong here, and I'm willing to admit that. Overall, Cosmic Star Heroine is a solid RPG experience from the gameplay perspective, which, for these kinds of games, I think is the most important part. It's a very intelligently designed battle system, coupled with a huge cast of very diverse and unique character playstyles. It really lets you experiment with a number of different strategies and party configurations. The game's short enough that it doesn't get boring or tedious. It has a generic story, but decent enough retro presentation. If you're not an RPG fan, I'm not sure that this is the game to try to convert you, but for fans of the genre, it's definitely a fun one to play through. Overall, I would give the game a 3.5 out of 5, and I would say for value, it's worth grabbing on sale. I think I got it for $5 on sale on the eShop, and that's about right for this kind of a game to me. So what do you guys think? Do you like these retro-style games? Let me know how wrong I was about the graphics and sound in the comments below. Do you like the new style with the sub-ratings for the different categories? I would love to get some feedback on that. What other games should I be reviewing? What kind of stuff do you want me to be talking about? Let me know in the comments. Follow me on Twitter. Be sure to like the video. Slap like now. Subscribe to the channel. It really helps out, and I do appreciate it. Thanks again, and I'll see you guys with the next video.